Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the N.O.P podcast. And today I'm introduced to you my newest guest, Craig Huston, podcast interviewer and latest candidate for the Scottish elections. Thank you, Craig Huston, for coming onto the show.
No problem at all.
Yeah, so nice to finally get you into the meeting room with me, and well done when it came to the elections.
Okay. I failed, so I don't know what the congratulations are for, but yeah, okay, thanks for that.
The effort is all that matters, to be honest, because I think when it comes to people I'm going around seeing who are more influential in Scotland, I think you're the one with the biggest account of 93,000, I believe, on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And would you like just to introduce to people who you've never seen you or heard you before, who you are and where you come from and all this stuff there?
I'm Glaswegian, lived in Glasgow since my early 20s. I was born out in Linwood, out past the airport. I lived there for my formative years, brought up as a teenager, moved to Bridgewere before I got married, and then moved into Glasgow. Started podcasting about three years ago, doing interviews. It was all football stuff, and then I became interested in politics around about the 23rd of November 2023 when Michael Matheson decided it was okay to claim for £11,000 of his phone bill while he was on holiday for roaming charges. And I started doing videos about my displeasure in particularly Scottish politics, and it just evolved from there. And then 2.5 years later, I've just said I've managed to build up. Really bizarre. Somebody in English Parliament pointed out a couple of months ago that I've got more subscribers on YouTube than Scottish television, which is a bit random, but there we go. So that's kind of a bit.
And that's kind of a good point, because comes to people who are influential in Scottish politics, you're probably one of the top people that actually came up, because there are many English accounts that talk about politics in general, but you're probably one of the biggest ones that talks about Scottish politics and probably highlights to a lot of people who don't know about what's going on up here to what's actually going on. And have you noticed that yourself? You're like probably the one that does it the most of it.
I don't know, because it's a strange thing to say, but I can't be bothered with politics. I don't really enjoy politics, so I don't like when I watch YouTube. I watch things about documentaries. I watch history. I watch. There's a couple of boys that I like that do mad challenges. English boys called. I can't remember, All the Gear or something, and that's what I watch when I'm not stuff myself. So I kind of don't come across. My algorithm in YouTube, when I turn on YouTube, doesn't throw Scottish political channels in front of me, because that's not what I use YouTube for when I'm a viewer. So I don't know how to compare that. I just go on with it, and I don't want to be the biggest. I don't want to be the smallest. I don't want to be. I just do what I do and get on with it. So if I am one with the highest followers or whatever, I'm not sure. And if I am, I'd be a bit weird how I got there without trying to attempt to be there, but there we go.
I mean, I would put a few explanations out there where there isn't much people that has that big of a gain or much of a following, because as you were saying, you got yourself into the Scottish elections, and I would say you're probably the best so far amongst everyone else who has their own YouTube channels and so on to actually gain a social media presence in a way. You've got yourself onto spaces, you got yourself onto different YouTube channels, my channel as well, when I appreciate it when I'm an absolute nobody, this YouTube channel as well. And there's not a lot of people that can go down. There are some, like the Force for Good with Alistair McConney. There's the majority, but that stopped because their thing was going anti-SNP, and then they stopped. And when you're trying to look at channels that talks about maybe Scottish culture and that, it's all the institutions. So, and then you come out and, like you said, start talking about football, and then you went on to, what was it, what was the laptops again?
What's it? The what?
The laptops. The
Oh, the iPad.
Yeah, the iPad,
Yeah,
sorry, yeah.
yeah.
And you were on about that, and basically from there, I was like, oh, there's this guy that's talking about the stuff, and he's getting the leeching, he's getting the likes, and everyone's falling behind him. Although, probably, would I be fair to say you probably didn't want to be in that space in the first place, like you said?
It was an accident. When I never planned to
Mm,
do anything. I just I woke
mm,
up one day. Before 2023, I was like the majority of people, and now I'm in
mm,
orbit that's into politics because we are the
mm,
weirdos that talk about
mm,
politics far too much. But
mm,
normal people don't, and normal
mm,
people only worry about politics normally twice, some years, and certainly once every year when there's a budget comes up, because it
mm,
figure out how much their cost of living inevitably has gone up, or when we have an election and they need to vote, they'll spend maybe a couple or 3 weeks having a think about who they're going to vote. And the rest of the time, they just
mm,
go on with their life. They worry about paying their bills and trying to have
mm,
enough spare cash each year to give themselves a nice wee holiday in the summer. That's what normal
mm,
people do.
mm,
And I was that normal person. And I didn't wake up one day and say I want to have a YouTube channel that's got more subscribers than STV. I just woke up one day and had heard enough bollocks about
mm,
around Parliament and started talking about it. And it
mm,
just snowballed for there. And
mm,
I wish I could stop talking about it, perfectly honest with you, because that would mean
mm,
that the country's in a place where I believe it
mm,
should be. And it's not there just now.
mm,
Unfortunately, I'll keep highlighting these things until,
mm,
if we're in a position one day. Now that I'm sort of more of how YouTube works, I would love to be a
mm,
travel guy on YouTube and go and see the
mm,
world. But unfortunately,
mm,
my place right now is moaning about
mm,
predominantly Scottish politics, and I wish I didn't have to
mm.
do it. I wish I never had to do it.
And I know previously, prior to the election, you went quite far
Mm.
to talk about the migrant problem. You
Yeah,
were part of the Social Democrat Party for a while,
yeah,
then you became independent, and then you stood up for the Scottish election. So,
yeah.
would you like to tell us about more or less that whole thing there? Just to,
Well, that was quite a lot you flung on the table there.
yeah, I know. I
What
just
part would
feel,
you like me to talk about?
yeah, yeah. I was like, maybe I should like you went all the way to Dover to Greece to talk about the migration problem. Why did you go all the way out there to talk about stuff all the
Well,
way out there?
the first thing I wanted to do was see for myself what it was like in Dover and Cali. And
Mm,
then when I got over there and it shook me to the core, what I seen, I thought, how
mm,
did these people get into Europe in the first place? And at that precise moment, the most
mm,
normal route was from Turkey into a
mm,
small Greek island called Lesbos, which is the north coast of Lesbos, is only 6 miles from Turkey. So
mm,
I wanted to go over there and find out more about why these people are doing what they're doing and how do they do it.
mm,
And those trips were phenomenal for giving me a knowledge. And the weird thing is, the stuff that I found out about what the EU are doing and what the United Nations are doing, I could have figured it out by sitting in the house and Googling it, but I wouldn't have had
mm,
the need to do it. I mean, I turned up on this Greek island, and one of the first things I encountered was an EU army called Frontex. I never knew existed. I didn't know that the EU
okay.
has its own standing army, and they're trying to raise that figure of members of the army up to 50,000. And when they're in your country, they have been very, very clear that Greece now do not protect the border from migrants. The Frontex do. And Frontex have had now a written agreement with the United Nations that they will not turn back any migrants coming into any part of the EU where they control the border. Now, I
All
could
right.
have found all this out if I Googled it, but I didn't have the
Mm,
inspiration to even do it until I was like, who are these people that look like soldiers round about
mm.
when you come into Lesbos, they put them in try to think the correct word to use.
Detention center?
Well, that's a bit of a harsh word because,
Ah.
that's what you're led to believe. You're led to believe
Mm,
these things are prisons and terrible conditions. But when you drive past it 10 minutes after arriving in the island and you see hordes of people coming out of the detention centre, going in buses, going to walking to shops and stuff, you think, what happened to this prison? Um,
mm,
so I managed to witness that. I managed to talk to
mm,
people that are in the camps, get more of an idea of, what they're doing.
mm,
Um, I then tried to find the EU are putting up 5 of these new centres because apparently the ones they're in just now are terrible, but that's not what the people that are in them tell you. And they've got funding to build 5 of these across Greece, 4 in the islands and 1 in the mainland, where they can put people through the asylum process. And I wanted to find this one that's costing €50 million right in the middle of Lesbos. And I couldn't find it. And when I got near it, as far as I could tell on maps and sat-nav, I was up a dirt track, up a mountainside in a forest. I could figure out by the coordinates I put into my sat-nav that I was probably less than a mile away. And my car lost all. I lost my sat-nav, I lost my phone, I lost my radio, I lost all communications. And then a 4x4 Jeep came up behind me and asked me where I was going. And that was one of the points in this trip that I needed a new set of pants, because there was a lot of strange things happening like that. Particularly when I went up to the north of the island. I was living in the south-east of the island. It's only a small island. And I was going up to the north to hopefully see some boats coming in. And some really strange things happened up there. I almost bored you to death. I mean, I think I've done about 4 videos on my trip. And the harrowing one was when I arrived back. I flew back to Manchester. I had a meeting in Manchester the day after I came home. So I checked into a hotel in Manchester. I got my laptop out and I said, I think I'd done 3 videos while I was there. But the 4th video I done from the safety of Manchester and told people the full story of what went on, things that I wasn't comfortable about while I was in the country. So I mean, I could talk to you about an hour just about that trip alone, which I guess what you got me on for. But that trip was just purely based on the shock that I got when I turned up, speaking to police. I mean, I went out. Everybody that goes out there, they get mob handed, or they get with full team of security, or they get with a producer and a sound guy and a cameraman. I went out myself, jumped in the car one day and said, bollocks to this, I'm going to have a sniff about here. So obviously I'm in areas where I can't really go into forests and stuff like that other people have done. So I had to consider my own safety. But I spoke to I've got some footage where there's just thousands of people congregating on a sort of charity dispersal centre where they give them water and all that. Where are these people sleeping? And done tours found, in bushes and forests. And then I spoke to local police, and they were asking me, I asked them, told them what I was there to do, asked them if there was any legal things I should know about, France, what I was doing. I didn't want to get myself into bother. And I asked them, I looked at a map and said, where will I find dinghies? And they pointed to a place called Les Sur Boulogne, and then pointed to just north of Dunkirk, where the Belgian border is, and said, anywhere there. I was like, mate, that's about 50 miles. They went, yeah.
Yeah.
What we see in the news is just a tip of the iceberg. And the figures that I figured this out when I was standing at Dover, overlooking the harbour. There's guys who record, and then that information goes to the GB News and other outlets, and they count everybody that's coming in every day. And I spent a morning with them from about 7, 8 o'clock up until 12, 1 o'clock. And in that short 4 hours, there was 250 people get taken out the channel and dropped off at a harbour. And when I was standing there, and I said to them, hold on a minute, see the numbers that you come up with at the end of the day, how close is it to the official numbers? They said, well, the UK government's normally about 40 hours later, they give us the official numbers. And we're normally there or thereabouts. If we're wrong, it may be 1, it may be 2, depending if it's a busy day, but generally we're there. And I thought, well, look over to my left, there's like the ferry terminal, which is quite busy. And before COVID, the legal migration tended to be stowaways. I said, well, is the stowaways finished? I'm like, nope. And then I looked to my right and could see miles of beach. And I said, if they stopped landing down here, in which they said, no, it's still normal for people to get up in the night or a morning, and there's been dinghies arrived in their towns right along the coast here. So the figures that we're given and the figures that people get all excited about and think, well, that's terrible, the amount of illegal migrants we've got coming to our country. That's not the right figure. Now, is it 10 times that or 5 times that or 2 times that? I don't know. But the stowaways haven't finished. They arrive and when they come over at night, our border patrol boats aren't out picking about the sea. So they land at their own discretion. We have people arriving every day. I saw it for myself in the ferry coming back, who I'm quite sure are coming here as tourists and just don't go home. But with people arriving in flights every day who just decide to come to the country. So this illegal migration figure that we're given and everybody gets upset about, it's a total gaslight, because that is only through the port of Dover with people that we've picked up off the channel in dinghies.
It's mad. Really mad. And it sort of fills in that whole hole where people think, oh, it's just a bunch of people that's coming across. There's no plan. There's nothing. It seems to be all organized from the top down in a way.
It may be. I mean, it may not be. But what I do know is that there's plenty of people making plenty of coin out of it.
Yes.
Because the people organising the boats get paid first and foremost. Then we bring them here, and the people that we need to use as interpreters for them. Because ironically, for most, we get told that a lot of people want to come to Britain because it's a language they talk. But when you go down to these detention centres, nobody can speak English. That's pretty bizarre. So we need interpreters for them. We then need to pay £5 to £6 billion a year, putting them up in hotels while we claim asylum for them. That inevitably means more interpreters. That means we have lawyers. We've got lawyers in this country who purely deal with asylum claims. So we've got businesses best set up just to deal with them. We then, once we grant them asylum, because the vast majority of them get granted asylum, very few don't. If we're in Scotland, we've then got the crazy laws where if they present themselves in any council in Scotland, then they must be housed by that council.
Yeah.
While we're on that topic, my latest venture's been looking at what we call refugee status immigrants, who Glasgow City Council spent £7 million last year putting up in normal hotels alongside normal residents, because they're just classed as homeless and they're not migrants anymore. But as if you watch my videos closely, I've done 3 in the last 2 weeks where the very brave whistleblowers within the Travelodge group highlighted the fact that the female employees in these hotels are issued with rape alarms. But your sister, your daughter, your mother, your auntie could be, going in a hen do or a gig at the SEC Hydro, book a room, and you could have these guys either side that nobody knows who they are. They're inevitably single fighting age men. And the staff in the hotel have got rape alarms, and you've paid £150 for the privilege of not having one and been roomed beside them. And all these people make money. And then once we find them a house, there's other people whose sole business is to furnish refugees houses for them. That's another business. So, it may be somebody's really clever master plan that's managed to make this all happen. Which may or may not be true. But what I do know is the situation we're in now is there's so many people all the way through that chain that we've now made illegal migration an industry. And there's too many people making coin out of that industry that will let it disappear easily because they make money.
Because there's, like you've explained it, there's a whole industry that makes it profitable. Like giving people hotels, if you can't afford your own rent because the taxes are so high, will give you like leeway of the hotel and make sure your problems go away, and we just chuck a bunch of migrants in, legal or not illegal. And when I'm out here, because I'm in Glasgow just now, I'm seeing like every time the claims on X or GB News or whoever's speaking says, oh, it's full of refugees, full of migrants, the homeless shelter isn't full of Scottish people. And I'm seeing Nigerians chucking scooters into vans, like the electric bikes, just chucking them into vans. And I'm like, okay, so this can't be bullshit if I'm seeing with my own eyes now. And I'm like, this is mad. And I guess could I call you a Glaswegian? Proper? Yeah. Would you say that's probably the most change you've seen in Glasgow? Is that demographic change, or would you say there's other things that's led to that?
I've seen Glasgow in a bad place. I've then seen it flourish into a good place, and now I'm seeing it as an absolute shithole again. So I've seen the total cycle of Glasgow up and down.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And where we are now is probably for safety of our youth, safety of our children, the state of our city
Mm-hmm.
centre, the lack
Mm-hmm.
of investment for businesses in there.
Mm-hmm.
It just beggars belief. It doesn't make any sense. I don't understand
Mm-hmm.
why you would want and be able to. I mean, listen, if you charge businesses a fair property tax, then you would get a lot of money coming into Glasgow. But they do stupid things like this: multiply your can't remember the name it's called again. That's terrible. Your rates by about sixfold in a year for many businesses,
Mm-hmm.
but you make it more difficult for the customers to get in because every
Mm-hmm.
time you get into Glasgow, there's more roads shut to bus lanes. There's another one happening this week.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've looked along, even like Paisley Road West. I've done a video about that where they came
Mm-hmm.
and put new bin organisers in the
Mm-hmm.
street, which took about a car and a half. So you're losing about 2 car parking spaces every 100 yards on both sides of the street. Well, that's taken up. You know, if you're driving home from work and you see
Mm-hmm.
a space close to a newsagent's because you need something for the house, you'll pull into there. But if you can't
Mm-hmm.
get parked, you'll
Mm-hmm.
inevitably end up at Tesco's or Asda.
Mm-hmm.
So when we make it tougher for people, you know, for normal family type businesses and good local businesses, it just beggars belief. Um, you know, if you go and you just wander around our city, it's a shithole. It's not an attractive place to be.
Mm-hmm.
I only go into Glasgow city centre when I really needed to. If I had the choice, I would never be back in it. But I would like it to be improved so I could enjoy going back into it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a place to go out for a nice, enjoyable meal and a couple of drinks on a Friday and Saturday anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I see. Well, you got the US charges as well, because that's the one thing I hear about the taxi drivers not being pleased of.
Mm.
Like they've had to change the entire industry just to, or just retire entirely because they're like, this is just not affordable. And I
I
don't
tell you, I'd
know.
love to know. Here's one for you, right?
Mm,
Or taking a car into Glasgow is a nightmare because you've got lack of parking. Some streets you can't go up, and you've got the
mm-hmm,
ULEZ, which prevents people, a lot of people even considering it.
mm, mm-hmm,
A normal public transport's a shambles. Can I tell you where to get a bus and how long and how often it would turn up? You go
mm,
onto a bus, you're surrounded by absolute fucking lunatics because we give everybody a free bus pass now. So it just
mm-hmm,
gives, you know, we're now got a mob culture, and you know we want to give them all to migrants as well. So the
mm-hmm,
buses are not really enjoyable now.
mm-hmm,
So I would love to know, for example, in Glasgow City Council, the people that write the taxi licences, if any of
mm-hmm,
them maybe own taxis. That would be an interesting investigation to see if anybody who actually, you know, helps these things is got any connections to the taxi firms. And there's a lot of good taxi firms out there, by the way. But because it seems to be the only way you would get into Glasgow now by taxi. And we've already seen concerns. I've done a video about Inverclyde, who they're now, if you're foreign and you can't do a police check like you and I can do, and you can't
mm-hmm,
provide a police check from your native country, then they're just ticking the box to say you're accepted for a license. That's bonkers.
mm-hmm,
And again, I would like to know if anybody in that council's got any connections to
mm-hmm,
anybody with a taxi firm, because that doesn't make sense to me. Why anybody that's meant to be a councillor and is meant to have the safety and the choices, what's the word I'm looking for, the thoughts, the concerns of their constituents first and foremost, would put in stupid things to allow people who would potentially have criminal records but be foreign be allowed to take them in a locked car
mm-hmm.
alone. It just does. When things don't make sense, there's normally pound, shillings, and pence behind it.
I highly doubt it because mine with that vape shop that has been beside the train station not long ago, that was one of the many properties that probably still has no license to actually operate. And well, that's what I read on the papers anyway. That the vape shop that burned down beside Central Station, that wasn't even a legal shop to have open.
Yeah.
And that went into flames. It's burnt a bit of old Glasgow, and everyone's just kind of looking at it as an eyesore, and
Yeah.
everyone just kind of forgets. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, you're not going to forget this, are you? Yeah, you are. Okay, that's fun. But then you have councils who, and just the main government as well, who's making it difficult for businesses, even the big ones such as buses with the, like you said, free bus passes. Now they're wanting to give free bus passes to everyone, which is going to be, well,
We're giving
it's
grants to people. We
mm,
give grants now to bus companies to change to electric, which I
hmm
think is phenomenal. If you've got a private business and you don't already plan, if you get anything that needs any type of vehicles, whether that would be a
mm,
fleet of company cars for reps or vans for deliveries
hmm
companies, you would factor into your business plan how, if you want to change them all and you don't want any of your stock to be more than 5 years old, for example, you would change
hmm
20% of your fleet every year.
hmm
So if you're a bus company and you want your buses for 10 years, then you would need to plan to have money to, change 10% of your fleet every year.
hmm
We're actually giving grants now to companies to change to electric buses.
hmm
I think, well, that's a bit bonkers. But we've actually been giving grants to a bus company who doesn't even have any bus routes, which is most
Really?
bizarre. Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah. So, all these things are a bit
hmm
strange, aren't they?
hmm And I guess that really leads to the incompetence of the governments that we have,
I would,
and
I would, I would be careful with the choice of words there. Incompetence would suggest that they're making mistakes.
like that would assume they don't know what they're doing. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that would be stupid on my part to even
No, you might be
assume that.
right. You might be right,
Yeah.
but I can no
Mm,
longer consider that it's not stupidity.
mm,
I used to live in a world where I thought corruption and brown envelopes and stuff was what other countries done.
mm,
I can't take that as gospel anymore. That's all I'll say.
mm. I would believe that not just the Scottish one, that the whole government knows exactly what they are doing. I think they're fully aware, but they want to be a managerial kind of service where they think they know what they are doing is best, and making it as difficult as possible for you to or to manage your life completely is the way for them for everything to work.
Mhm.
Like that is the perfect system for them. The government looks after you. We're seeing this up here definitely. The government looks after you. You have no worries, and you'll be happy in a way.
Yeah.
Sounds sinister as hell, but some people actually normalize that to some extent.
Yeah.
And I guess that could lead to uh, you kind of decided to put yourself into election about all this in a way because you bothered. There's a lot of people who say they want to do something and then just never do it.
Mhm.
They're all big talk, and when you ask them, "Are you going to do something?" They're like, "No, I can't handle it. I can't do it," or
Yeah. See,
some
see when somebody,
excuse.
see when somebody said, I was in sales for 25 years, right? And when you
Mm,
say to somebody, "Do you want to buy this product?" for example, when they
mm,
say no, the next words that leave their mouth are only one of two things. They're either a
mm,
valid reason why they can't buy it, or
mm,
an excuse why they can't buy it. And the most
mm,
normal one is, oh, I need to speak to my wife, which is normally bollocks, right? But
mm,
that's an excuse. That's not a reason. And everything in life's the same. So when somebody says, no, I can't do that, and then continue to talk, they're either giving you a genuine reason or they're
mm,
just giving you a bullshit excuse. And I
mm,
kind of ran out of excuses when people were saying, why don't you stand for election? I thought,
mm,
I'm just doing that thing where I come up with excuses. So bollocks,
mm,
let's do it. But a lot of people, and whether they're excuses or whether they're genuine reasons, I don't know. But things like all my work, all my family, all my whatever. My favourite one is all my past. You think
mm,
past doesn't matter, but are these excuses or are these genuine reasons? I don't know. Now I'm pretty fortunate that I don't have the great outgoings in my life that
mm,
I can take these gambles. I don't need to rely on anybody else to give me a job to
mm,
give me money to pay my bills. I can go and make some money
mm,
myself if I need to. So I'm quite a privileged position there.
mm,
But I understand a lot of people aren't. So
mm,
that's a potential reason. But if people
mm,
could maybe just consider a wee bit more that are we just putting up excuses not to do things,
mm,
then we might see more people standing for election and more normal people standing for
mm,
election. Because what we have now is the vast majority are people who politics is their industry because
mm,
they left school, they had an inclination for politics, they went to do a degree in policy writing or some nonsense like that. They came
mm,
out, started probably during their studies, getting involved with student politics, found
mhm,
themselves then working for the Labour Party or SNP or whatever as a whatever.
mhm,
and then eventually they work their way and end up being politicians. And I'm not saying that that shouldn't happen, but we cannot rely on these people to be 100% of our politicians. We need normal people in there, people that have got experiences. I've been homeless. I've slept in my car. I've, had concerns and issues to deal with in my life, and I kind of get the feel of the street a bit more than I would imagine somebody that doesn't. But and what other problem we have with that is if we have all types of people from a bubble, then it's any wonder they think that putting in a guy who evidently doesn't even have a visa to live here and work here as a parliamentarian, I think that's perfectly normal. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, he's a nice guy, so why shouldn't he be on MSP and all this sort of stuff? They find it totally bizarre that we shouldn't teach kids and indoctrinate kids into deciding when they're 6 years of age. Are you sure you're a boy? All that sort of nonsense. That's what we get when we only have one bubble of people making decisions in parliaments. So we need to encourage more normal people and try and get a balance.
And that kind of flows me into the question of you put yourself into the electoral seat. And can I ask just, I'm assuming from all what you've said, it's the lack of having normal people in power. Is that why you decided to go for the election?
Well, yeah, but just, I felt, what's the point of me shouting about it and not doing anything about it? And I put myself up, decided about 2 years ago that was what I was going to do. It was around about the early spring 2024 that I thought, right, let's do it and let's put ourselves up for election in Holyrood. That's 2 years away, and we'll see where it goes.
How do you think the election campaign went? Because I was watching a lot of your videos, and I'm like, you're getting a lot of positive feedback on a lot of spectrums. So how do you think that all went?
Well, I managed to do something that parties can't do, or parties do, but they need to give up their sort of core values to do it. I'm me. I don't hide who I am. My religious, my views in the Constitution of Scotland, these things, But I managed to attract a lot of support from places where you wouldn't expect me to attract support, without bending to try and achieve that. And I think what parties do is a lot of them bend to try and get more votes. And what they do is, in turn, they piss off their core voter because they think, well, I thought you were our party. Now you're trying to be their party. And whatever that could be constitutional question. You thought it was a party that, was a Christian type party, bending to other religions or different demographics and stuff. So I managed to do that without bending at all. And I think that was something that I didn't consider I would be able to do, but I did. And then I started thinking, well, why don't parties just be themselves and be true to themselves and hope that, okay, people that supported me have got a different view on the independence of Scotland than me, but they felt, well, there's a guy that's standing up for the safety of people, for social housing, for business, for all these things which are concerns of mine. So yeah, we'll stand behind this guy. Parties don't do that. They try to be everything to everybody. And in turn, I believe a lot of them lose their core vote because of that, their core support. So it's a bonkers world. That was a kind of a shock to me. In the volume of people that you wouldn't traditionally think would vote for me. It was most humbling.
Yeah. Like I was saying, you've got quite an influence online, and if people see you, they're quite happy to meet you. And I would say that's very impressive for someone who is part of you were the leader of the SDP or the Social Democrat Party, and then you went independent. And can I just check why you went independent instead of just staying with them?
Well, there was a conversation we had about 6 months before this, and I was like, well, hold on a minute. We've no really. There was a lot of reasons behind it. Some of them are my fault, no, the party's fault. But we didn't grow the brand, the party, as much as we thought we would in the run up, the year before the election. So it was about brand awareness. And I said, look, if my name's not on this ballot because there's a list candidate for a party, it's just the party's name. Would that be a problem. Would I get more votes with my name on it or the SDP? So we discussed the possibility of making a slogan up, which would be vote SDP for Craig Huston, which meant your name would be on the ballot because the slogan could be attached to it. So I kind of thought that was what we were doing, but unfortunately that didn't happen, and it was too close to the election before I realised to actually get into the Electoral Commission and make a slogan that we could use for the ballots. There's time gaps that, obviously you need to have these things in place 2 months before or whatever it is. So that didn't happen. So then so whose name do we want in this ballot? And the decision was made that it would probably get more votes with my name, because I'd spent about 2 months saying to people, I used to put up here in my videos a wee SDP logo, and I used to say, if you want to vote for me, this is the box you tick on this form when you get it. But people would kind of think, what was that? I was to vote for Craig. So we made the decision that it would probably be more prudent and beneficial to all parties having my name on it. So what I was going to do was stand as an independent candidate supported by SDP. And then when I kind of thought about that, I thought, you know what? I'm now an independent candidate, but our party are kind of going to pay for my campaign. And I don't think that's fair, because if somebody in Dorchester's a member, the benefit they would have with me using the money would be at least a bit of exposure that SDP's on a ballot and stuff like that. So that didn't sit comfortable with me. And then it was about 12 hours before the deadline for having, maybe 18 hours before the deadline for having the paperwork put in. And I just thought, you know what? I kind of think it's a better proposition, just being me and just being the standalone candidate, not supported by any party. And that's what we've done. So that's how we got there. There was no headline, there was no fallout. And I kind of, there's this thing that people need to do now, that when they leave a party or whatever, they need to take to Twitter and put like a whole resignation letter out to the public and all that sort of bollocks. And I don't get that. I kind of look at them and think, this is actually bigger than you. I mean, we need to solve the problems that Britain face just now. It's not about you, right? And there was a lot of reform candidates wrapped it as soon as they found out they were not in the top 3 list for their region. And they all done this nonsense, and every one of them had to put like a resignation letter out and stuff. And I thought, that ain't me. It's not about me. It's about Scotland in this election and Britain. Is a bigger picture we need to solve. So I think that's a sign of a lot of people's ego, and the fact that it is about them. Whereas it's not about anybody, it's about Britain. We've got a country that's in turmoil because some people in positions of power for too long, over 20 years, have not had the balls to make the big, bad decisions that need to get made to solve this problem. And that's kind of where we need to be.
And you did, I would say, not well. Sorry, not well. You did well for our first time independent candidate with 1,997 votes. And I would say that's very well done for someone who's gotten to the independent candidate for the election. Although it wasn't enough to get you into the position of power. How do you think, what do you think happens to you after this now? What do you think?
Well, I don't know, is the honest answer. A lot of people asked me in the run-up to election, what are you going to do if you don't get elected? And I said, well, I don't need a plan B just now. Let's just work plan A harder. And then if we do need a plan B, we'll consider it. So the election is less than a week away. It's 4 or 5 days away. I don't know what happens next for me as an individual politically. But what I want to do is, I spent a lot of time considering this even before the election and before the campaign. And I believe that the best option we have right now as the next Prime Minister for the United Kingdom would be Rupert Lowe. So I've decided I've joined the Restore Party. And I've not got a title, I don't have a position, I'm just a member, like 100,000 or 130,000, whatever the number is now, of members. And I'll try and help that party gain even more. I mean, I'm doing a fantastic job for a new party. And, you've already said I've got a good platform in Scotland. So if I can utilise that and let the party utilise that and make the awareness more, and hopefully drive members, then great. We've got an election, council elections in just under a year now, all across Scotland, which Rupert Lowe's already said he wants to restore candidates and all these, and I don't really see myself working in a council, and that's been such a interesting job for me. But if I can play a part in finding suitable candidates, promoting candidates, and try to help them get in, then great. I may change my mind on that. I might decide to wake up one day and think, you know what, being in a council for a wee while might not be the worst idea for me. But right now, it doesn't really. It's no driving me. In 3 years' time, we've got a general election. Could I be a candidate for Restore as an MP? Again, I need to make some tough decisions. I'll be 56 when that election takes place, and if successful, you'd be expected to work in London till I was 61. It's not quite how I planned my life when I hit my 60s. I have got other ideas in my life at that point, but that's an option that I may or may not. The party may not be interested in having me as a candidate for anything. So I'll just get in, get the sleeves rolled up, try and help this party as much as I can with the platforms I've got, and we can review these things when needed. But I've not come into that. I never even told anybody who's come to the party. I didn't contact anybody in the party, which seems to be a lot of people are doing it with me now. So, you know, I might join your party, but what can I get out of it? And I think, well, that's not what it's all about, and that's not what I done. I just filled out a piece of a form online and done it. And now I'm already I'm going to some of the. I'm obviously a Glasgow branch member. We've got a meeting early next month, which I'm looking forward to finding out, you know, who else is involved in our branch level. I've already spoke to the Glasgow branch coordinator. I've spoke to one in the East Coast. I'm going through to some events that they're going to be doing towards the end of this month. And I've said to all the people, just put my name about, you know, I'll go to any of the meetings up here and, you know, try and help them and platform them and, you know, support them. And I can do that as a member without any position in a political party. That's certainly what I intend to do. And what happens after that will depend on what the party want to do with somebody like me and what I want to do with my future. If it's more than try to drive Rupert Lowe to be the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. But that is the most important thing. Whether Craig Huston takes an active role in any candidate positions, that's neither here nor there for me at the moment. My main aim, my single biggest driver for doing this, was to do my little bit to make it more possible that Rupert Lowe becomes the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. But what you hear round about you is other people saying, well, I might get involved, but what's in it for me? That's not why I get involved. I get involved because I want Rupert Lowe to be the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, because in my opinion, out of the possible candidates right now, he would be my preference. What happens to Craig Huston in that story? Who knows? What does Craig Huston want to happen to Craig Huston in that story? I'm 4 days after an election campaign that knocked the stuffing out of me. You know, I'm not in a position to make those decisions right now. But who knows?
Well, history isn't written yet, so you don't know. And I don't know. Because I would say welcome Patriot to the Store movement, because I'm a member of them as well.
Yeah.
And I see them as the next potential actual patriotic nativist movement for the country. I think a lot of people are going to get behind, but obviously in Scotland things are a little bit slower than other parties, but it's okay, because I do believe also Lupito might be and probably is the man to lead the country forward. And with the results in Great Yarmouth, I'm quite pleased of how they're doing with such a small movement. And I guess
movement, you need to have a wee think about what the words just coming out your mouth there.
Well, okay.
It's not slow. You were saying it's slow and you're saying it's a small movement. And I would totally disagree with that. I think the growth in it has been absolutely phenomenal. And it's far from small. They're up there and overtaking a lot of parties that have been about a longer time. So the notion that they're small or slow, I can't agree with that.
I was kind of just making you try to defend them, but it's fine. It's okay. I was trying to make you defend them, so that's one thing everyone should know. I always sometimes do that just to see if people realize I'm doing
Yeah.
that. It's fine. No, no, they are doing a phenomenal job, and they've done actually quite a good job in Glee Yarmouth winning their 10 seats of the
Mm.
election.
Yeah.
And I do see them as being the potential of moving forward. And I guess someone did ask me, why did you not join like the other parties? Why did you go straight to them? Like, not
Yeah.
to say that you're jumping parties, jumping ship, just
Are you asking
what?
me?
Yeah,
I've told you. I believe
yeah.
that Rupert
Mm-hmm.
Lowe is the best
Mm-hmm.
person to be
Mm-hmm.
the next Prime Minister of United Kingdom. It's as
Mm-hmm.
simple as that.
As simple as that. And that's all it should be. And it's good to get more people that want to talk about the country moving forward, because with the election results, I think the Scottish people might have woken up to exactly what's going on, haven't they, a little bit? They've got a few, I think you'd call them crackpots into the parliament now, and everyone's just kind of like, the fuck? What happened there?
Mm-hmm.
And
My terminology, chosen terminology, is cranks. I quite lose
mm,
using that word. I think it's a good description of quite a lot of the
mm,
people that are going to be swearing in over the next
mm,
48 hours. The However, the one thing that I can take from that election,
mm,
positive, well, from one point of view, from a personal point of view, I get more votes on the regional list than any other independent candidate. I beat
mm,
someone like Ash Regan, who's been a decent parliamentarian for a few terms. So,
mm,
but I mean, at the end of the day, I failed. And a guy with 25 years of sales and sales management
mm,
experience, you didn't
mm,
achieve your target, so you failed. Um, However, having beaten people like that and beaten every single of the smaller parties, bar one, it's quite an achievement. There's a lot of smaller
mm,
parties that I achieved in one list, regional vote. I achieved more votes than they did over the whole of
mm,
Scotland. So
mm,
for one guy with a 6 week campaign, self-funded, um, grateful for the support given to by the general public who did help with the funding of it.
mm,
There's no party money behind it. It was a knee-jerk 18 hours before deadline decision to stand as an independent. But
mm,
I've done it, learned a lot out of the process. But one of the biggest um, positives out of the election was the fact that only 22.8% of our electorate voted for SNP. So people out there
mm,
are seeing through them. And I don't think that'll improve because I can't see how they'll become more attractive over the next 5 years. So that was a good plus. The other benefit, the big thing, was that the unionist parties gained more votes in total than the separatist parties. So as a unionist, that's another
mm,
positive. And where I
mm,
see the future for Restore up in Scotland is we only managed to entice 53% of our voters to vote.
mm,
So you've got three voter piles, as it were. You've got voters who voted who want independence for the voting
mm,
independence parties. There's voters who voted for unionist parties, and there's
mm,
voters who voted for nobody. So the
mm,
biggest pile there is actually the ones that voted for nobody.
mm,
So if you can attract them, and then you can show and prove that you're a better unionist proposition,
mm,
and the second biggest pile, which was people
mm,
who voted for unionist parties, then it's not inconceivable that with a bit of graft and a bit of effort, that
mm,
come the Westminster elections in 3 years, that a party like the Store,
mm,
and a leader like Rupert Lowe, who a lot of people really buy into, would
mm,
not pick up a significant number of seats
mm,
at a Westminster election through the Scottish constituencies.
mm,
And that's kind of where my head is. And that's
mm,
kind of how I would attract. Now, as I say, and I'll repeat, I'm just a normal member of the party. I'm quite
mm,
happy to do my piece. I'm quite happy to volunteer anywhere that's required. Do I want to stand as a parliamentarian? Possibly, but it's no why I get involved. If
mm,
that's to happen in the future, then that will happen in due course. But it's not my driver. I didn't contact the party and say, oh, look at me, I'm this guy with 92,000 subscribers, and here's what I've
mm,
done in an election. Can I join your party? Can I get a position in your party?
mm.
Didn't do that at all. Opened
No.
up the internet, didn't tell anybody, didn't ask anybody. Just joined the party that I believe is the
Mhm,
best to provide Westminster with the best option as Prime Minister in 3 years' time.
Yeah. And I feel like the shaping of politics basically starts now, where the whole narrative of how people has been doing things. I think I've seen people on the unionist and nationalist side just having an entire shake-up about how they do things. People say tactically vote, and then they say it doesn't work, and it does work. There's people who saying there's unionist and nationalist vote, and there's people like, like you said, the independents or no independents. But with all those ideas coming in at once, everyone's kind of like, that's not working anymore. Like that thing we've been doing for 20 years, one, hasn't been working for us, and two, hasn't been achieving the results that we want. And for this, and in the result of that, people probably feel like their government hasn't done any good for them. And I think it's just because we haven't, like, as Scots, we haven't been on the same team about a lot of things. And this, like back in 2014 when it came to the independence vote, where everyone was split down the middle, and you were busy campaigning for Rangers, as you said, and you just felt the split from there. And then it got worse when it came to 2016, and ever since then, I think people are slowly realizing this mentality of both sides isn't working, and I think that's what the store is trying to do, is trying to fix that in a way where it's the people versus the establishment government,
No, I
or
don't.
something like
I
that.
kind of. I don't think so, because right now we're in a very new party who's been very, very clear that we need to fix Britain. They're building their branches at an incredible rate. There is no Scottish overseeing part of the party at present that I can see. So to get involved in those sort of chats, I think we're a wee bit premature there. The primary aim of Restore, if you listen to the videos of the launch that Rupert Hope put out, was lining it up for an assault on the 2029 Westminster election. Now, we're only a few months away from that video, and although the growth's been phenomenal and the amount of branches popping up is incredible, we're still a wee bit away from, I'd imagine, from deciding what Scotland looks like. What is the plan for Scotland? And again, the Scottish elections, the next Scottish elections, unless we have some incredible things happen, they're not for 5 years. So the party, a bit of time. The next step is council elections next year, which Rupert Lowe suggested he wants campaign in and get candidates in. But the big main driver has still got to be the general election in 2029. We will have another Scottish election in 2021. But, that's 5 years away.
Yeah, because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. There could be an election announced tomorrow and we'd have no idea. But we don't know what's happening in the future, and what happens in Scotland's going to be. I think people are going to start waking up to the coffee a little bit when they've realised they've got an international student for the Green Party. Some of the seats that were voted in on the regional seat, they were like, did I really want that person in there? Not really. But it's like many things like that. And people are, I think they're starting to realize what's going on, and they're like, maybe we should get more involved. And I think that's what the store is going to do. It's trying to get the normal people, because I know their biggest lot of people isn't people who are ex-parties. They're people who have never got involved in politics before. Like you said, there was 53% of people who got involved in this election in Scotland, but there's a whole ton of people that didn't even bother. And I don't blame them, because
the biggest chunk of voters, in terms of, as I said, there's three piles. Folk that voted for independent parties, folk that voted for unionist parties, and folk that voted for none of them. And the none of them is the biggest pile out of those. The second biggest pile is the ones that voted for unionist parties. So when you've got a proposition like Restore, particularly in Scotland, where you can tick both those boxes, you've got a great chance.
Aye. And that's what I think can do well in Scotland, because we don't have a shameful history of not being liked, or anything that negative. We've got quite a proud country. Sorry, I almost screwed up there. We've got quite a proud country of being patriots and look at putting Scotland first and all that stuff. And I think things are looking up now, like across the board for the nativist movement anyway. So when it comes back to you, I would like to say thank you for coming onto the podcast, and I would like to ask one final question. Who's your inspiration? I'm going to try and get a question to all the guests at the end of the show. So I would ask you, who's your inspiration that made you you?
Um, I don't know. I don't understand the question because it seems to thrown another one in at the side there.
No, no.
My inspiration for doing what I'm doing and what's made me me is two different things. My
Mm-hmm.
inspiration for doing what I'm doing is my kids and the next generation.
Mm.
And the person who's most influential in making me the person I am with my morals is my own father.
Okay. You that's fine. No worries. Thank you very much for Craig for coming onto the podcast. And this will be on live in a few days for you who have not seen. If you got a preview onto the locals, this will be introduced 2 days before it goes onto YouTube. So thank you everyone for watching this episode, and we will see you all in the next one. Thank you.